Ryhmän käsittelyä. Se olikaan kun muista itsekään. Mikä meillä oli kulmista?
Se pöytäys. Sekä tulee toi Elleni.
Oliko sinne pöytäykseen liittyen jotain materiaalia vai?
Ei, me paikutulaan sen läpi ilman puheenvuoroja. Koska ei tai mielestäni ainakin ei mitään väliä. No toivon ainakin.
Ei varmaan ole kovin relevanttia enää. Miksi tässä salia kuuluuko tästä tossa vai pitikö täällä käyttää näitä?
Toimiiks meillä mikit täältä vai pitääkö laittaa tää luuria päähän? Tää toimii. Erinomaista.
Toimiiko salia?
Kyllä minut ainakin kuulee.
Kun mä haluan sinussa.
Tervetuloa Aalto-yliopiston ylioppilaskunnan edustajiston kokoukseen 11/2022. Nyt on torstai 24. marraskuuta 2022. Kello on 17:22 ja avaan kokouksen. Suljetaan kohta 1, siirrytään kohtaan 2. Estyneisyyksien, esteellisyyksien, vaalikelpoisuuden menetysten, eroamisten ja läsnä olevien jäsenten ja varajäsenten toteaminen. Kokouksen alkuun todetaan tässä kohtaa läsnä olevat edustajiston jäsenet ja nimenhuudon meille suorittaa sihteerin toiminnanjohtaja Antti Ilmavirta. Muistakaa ilmaista läsnäolonne kuuluvasti oman nimenne kohdalla. Ole hyvä.
Kiitos. Kiitos puheenjohtaja. Aallon kokoomus ei ilmoitettuja, mutta onko teiltä joku paikalla? Nimet. Sammal Kare ja Kareen. Niin aivan, sori. Joo. Kareen, Sireen tulee myöhässä. Ja toistatko vielä? Kiitos. Jes, eli Kareen, Salminen ja Sireen tulee myös. Mahtavaa. Sitten Kem, Tunkelo, Reunonen, Anttila. Muita? Ei muita. Kylterirenkaat, Koponen, Haapanen, Hakkarainen, Perttula, Yläpoikelus, Räsänen, Ollanketo, Saari, Takanen, Niemi-Toni. Muita? Ei muita. Toista. Kiitos. Sitten Luja, Haavanlammi ja ei muita ymmärtääkseni. Luova ei edustajia valitettavasti tällä kertaa paikalla ymmärtääkseni. Markko, Välisalmi, Poutanen, Ihalainen, muita, ei muita, Voltti, Fiilman, Huttunen, Vooga, Keskinisula, Holmström, Voltista ja Voogasta muita, ei muita. Läsnä 33 edustajaa.
33 members present.
Oliko vielä joku, joka on paikalla ääntä käyttävänä edustajista jäsenenä eikä nimeä ole mainittu?
Has the right to vote and is present, but
Skisma ja
whose name was
Sireen
not
saapu
mentioned.
saliin nyt.
Eli Järvinen, Skisma,
Sireen saapu
From
saliin.
Skisma,
Sireen,
Sireen also entered the room. Yes, I think we can mark down that Sireen was here already during the roll call. So we have 35 representing council members present. Now we will record the people who are obstructed from attending. According to my interpretation and the way we have done it before, I would say that for item 9, DF, KY, and KY Foundation and 2022 board members are disqualified from attending or taking part in item 9. No comments or questions regarding this, so this is recorded in the minutes. Also give the right to speak to interpreters, OBS, people, and staff. And financial manager and executive director, financial real estate committee also have the right to be present and to speak. And all members of student union have the right to be present. We will also grant the right to be present and to speak to everyone involved in item 11. Appointment of the chair of the board and the board for 2023. So grant the right to speak and to be present to those who have announced their candidacy to the elections as the vice chair of the representing council 2023. Closing item 2, moving to item 3, recording the lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. We have quorum if we have at least 25 representatives present and the chair or vice chair of the representing council. Also, according to our regulations, the invitation to the meeting has to be published on the student union's bulletin board and also on the website at least 7 days prior to the meeting. The invitation must be sent to representatives at least 7 days prior via email in Finnish, English, and Swedish. These conditions have been met, so the meeting is lawful and has quorum. Closing item 3, moving to item 4, electing 2 persons approving the minutes and 2 vote counters. As before, 2 people who will approve the minutes and their deputies, and 2 vote counters and their deputies. So they will act as each other's deputies as before. So we need 4 names. Opening discussion, any suggestions or volunteers? Filman available as scrutinizer of the minutes. Anyone else? Holmström as vote counter. Thank you. Yes, you have to hurry so that there are spots left for others. Yes, we need 1 more person to approve the minutes. Is Palosua available? Yes, great. Closing discussion. So, Filman and Paloso will approve of the minutes, and Holmström and Regelin will act as the deputies, and won't counter-resolve Holmström and Regelin, and their deputies are Filman and Paloso. This has been decided. Closing item 4, moving to item 5. Confirming the agenda for the meeting. The agenda has been sent to you with the invitation. Does anyone have anything to add to it? I'd like to note that we have item 12, which is conditional, which will be discussed only in the event that item 11's proposal is rejected. Yes, so we'll approve the agenda and move to item 5.1, closed session. In accordance with section 18 of the Aalto University Student Union Constitution, each member of the student union has the right to attend the meetings of the Representative Council. The right to attend and address the meetings are further specified in the rules of procedure of the Representative Council. However, the Representative Council has the right to decide that an individual matter is to be addressed completely or partly in a closed session. The motion here is that the Representative Council decided to address item 9 in a closed session. So adoption of an additional 12-month period for a student center project. As the materials in this item will be confidential until any contract is signed at the request of AYYYE. Does anyone have anything to comment on this? The interpreter cannot hear a word of what Filman is saying. Yes, it is in the best interest of the student union to comply with AYYYE's request. So yes, it has been decided that we will address item 9 in a closed session. Closing item 5, moving to item 6, announcements. You mean the material pertaining to item 9? Thank you for notifying this, but unfortunately the materials for item 9 are not available in English. So Filman asked, since we don't have the materials in English, how this is in accordance with our language policy, which states that these materials should be available in 3 languages. Yes, hopefully you can hear me. Apologies for the presentation slides not being available in English. But they will be presented read out loud so you can hear them through the interpretation. Hopefully this will be sufficient, because we don't have any material about this that we would like to publicly disseminate. But you are correct in stating that it would have been good to translate this presentation, and we apologize for that. Moving to item 6, announcements. Opening discussion. Does anyone have any announcements to make? You may request the floor. Pilman? Yes, and now we can get you a microphone. Thank you. I'd like to announce that on the 10th of December we have the village pre-Christmas party. That is at the Rantasauna and the Polytechnic Museum. Thank you. Now, please remember to keep the microphone directly in front of your mouth and quite close so that people can hear it. Thank you, Poutonen from Vihreämpi Aalto. I'd like to announce that Vihreämpi Aalto's Antti Regelin has been elected as member of the board for SYL 2023. Warm congratulations to Antti also from us, the chairs. Any other request for floor for this item? I'd like to announce that the delegation that it was very successful, went very well, the SYL General Assembly last weekend. I don't see any other request for floor, so closing discussion and closing item 6. Moving to item 7, latest news from the office. Presented by member of the board, Ripatti. Yes, our presentation channel seems to have crashed. Yes, now you should hear me. Yes, thank you, Chair, the representing Council. Nice to be here in front, to talk to you. So we'll have a bit of an exercise. So raise your hand if you like ice cream. Thank you. That was it for the exercise. Yes, the IT seems to be working. Yes. One master of engineering was enough to get this working. So yes, about community, this is quite short. We had the Teekkarius 150 festivities and we heard a comment that quite the party. Excellent. Then about real estate. Monica sent us these slides. So these real estate have been for sale in silent sales. And we also undersigned one confidential agreement after the start of these silent sales. As we know, inflation and raising interests is a big problem also for our housing activities. Also for contingency plans for energy crisis, we are creating them already, and trying to find influential measures. Energy saving measures through automation system have been made use of by remedying our temperature situations that are in imbalance. We have also started the Otakaari building project. The Serviniemi area basic renovation and its scope, we are now looking into that. And we have also, it was active in the implementation of the real estate system. And there will be a bit now secure at campus since there are more security guards going on after these burglaries. And here's kind of the relax you this GIF animation. And then communication. The action plan project related to services and communications is almost finished, so that we can get our members to know what member services we offer. But we had to cancel this workshop for students because we didn't have enough participants, but instead go for consultants who were at campus to ask about people's views. We'll have the internal workshop on Monday, and on December we will see results. The design notebook will soon be printed. Volunteer recruitment communications is almost finished. We have updated a visual look of AYYE housing. Then we also will take new photos of empty apartments so people better know what kind of apartment they're moving into. Then about advocacy. Yes, thank you for the spoilers. We had the Syl General Assembly in Korpilampi, and Antti Regelin was elected as member of the board. AYYE also got most of their changes through to the action plan and rules. So congratulations to the delegates. So we do influential advocacy work. The applications for student representatives in university administration are going on. Then also minority panel assembled on the 12th of November and will convene once a month. And Nea Barman now works full-time at AYYE. She is our communications and advocacy chief. Then about administration. We managed to update this data referral agreement between Aalto and AYYE. And then we also externalized the administration of alarming system to Securitas. I do some updating in the data security of Artila and Hallobet systems, and we also have a new, as I mentioned, a new advocacy and communications chief. Yes, and one addition to administration. Annika asked me to add about this IT policy that we presented before. We listened to your critique that there's too much operative business there. So we went through the document carefully and saw that this kind of actual policy or politics, if we remove everything else, there will only be half a page of policy. So if you approve of the policy paper proposal, it will be opened up next year as well. So then we'll check what we will do about the IT policy, but we will not bring it to you in the same form to you as before. So we will get back to that later. Thank you. We have kind of missing some staff from an IT team because our Samus non-military service has ended. Then we can see in the General Assembly, people are quite tired and a bit sick, hungry, but also happy that we got our proposal for change through and didn't need to reject Syl's rules altogether, even though that seemed like a possibility. 10 things handled by the board. We have a new association, Aalto Effective Altruism. Then we talked about energy savings in the winter, talked about where to use the funding from the Ministry of Education and Culture. So we decided to support for associations their purchases, for example, for sports and hobbies. Then we opened the applications for student representatives, for administration. And then we opened the exchange scholarships for autumn. And that's not all. Yes, thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Opening discussion. We could have questions first and then a general discussion after that. Thank you. Can I ask all of my questions at once or? Okay. You mentioned these energy savings. Where you checked some kind of errors we've had, these temperature imbalances, etc. Why hasn't this been done before? If there are clear errors or defects? That's a good question. Can anyone answer? Yes, the question was why this hasn't been done before. We do this as part of our continuous activities, but we now have additional resources added to that. You said to go for a consultant for the campus to ask about people's opinions. Is this the best possible use for our money? Since go for a consultants are quite expensive. What did it produce us? Yes, that's a good question as well. Ilma Virta maybe can answer this. Julia asked for representatives, students to the workshop several times. We tried to find them everywhere, also for the representative council, but we only got 2 representatives to the workshop, so we had to cancel it. But still, we wanted to hear the students' opinions. So Gofore, who was supposed to run the workshop, suggested that maybe they could walk around the campus and ask people instead. And I believe they got good comments from the students. So yes, this was plan B since we had to cancel the workshop. So I'm Malcolm McGee, member of the board in charge of communications. Yes, why we purchased this, ordered this service from Gofore, because it was in the action plan, but we didn't have personal resources at the office, so we had to outsource it. Is it related to this? Yes, both, and then back to Filman. Thank you. Watching from Vihreämpi Aalto. Can we get some kind of a summary of what the consultants talked about with the students? We'll look into that. No, of course, we'll get some kind of a report of what they talked about. But we are still thinking on in what kind of format we should do that. Because when the project is finished, then we will, of course, tell you what we have discovered. I don't think you probably don't want the raw data, like just the discussions. Thank you. You also mentioned changes to the action plan, SYL action plan that is. Could you mention what those were? The changes to action plan and rules. It's difficult to remember, but I think the most important thing for us to the rules was that SYL suggested that we would have that they would halve the number of delegates. Or they want to cut down the number so that the number of deputy delegates would be halved, but we wanted it to be as before. I talked with other student unions and came to the conclusion that we want to have these full number of deputy delegates also in the future, because it's not a good reason for doing that, reducing the number just by just saying that the premises are not big enough. I think that was our biggest change that we managed to get through. Maybe if the board has something to comment, they can. Thank you. Then about Securitas. Was this budgeted originally? How much more will it cost? Yes, there's a camera surveillance at office and the alarm system has been updated and its administration has been outsourced to Securitas. So why do you think that the previous or current level of security wasn't enough? Yes, the need for this arose in 2020 winter, I think, when there was a break-in at the central office. And we noticed that the image from the surveillance footage, they were useless. So we saw that if we want to protect the central office, well, we need to update the security equipment there. And if I understood correctly, I think the costs from this infrastructure will be paid by the owner of the real estate. So it doesn't go away from our association activities. We previously had an agreement with Securitas about how to use the footage, and we made it a bit more rational, if not cheaper, but at least much easier for us, the use of the footage. So we can ask the Securitas guys to get us specific data instead of me going through 8 hours of surveillance footage. I think that was the previous model that we had to go through them hours of footage ourselves. Thank you. And then about the IT policy document. Have you given any thought of who to involve in this process? Or is it still just an internal discussion at the office? Well, now we just stated that in the format where we presented to you previously, we don't want to present it in that format anymore because it's not very prudent, but we haven't really given more thought to that yet. About but the IT policy, it's kind of peculiar that we are now talking that it will be handled with the policy paper, because I think the original motivation of handling it was that our policy paper guides our IT work into the wrong direction, and the goal was to form a uniform kind of idea of what we want AYYE's IT services to be like. So I'd really like to see the comment related to this, and I think the policy paper should answer some completely different questions than what was discussed here. Yes, I can bring this feedback and comments to the persons concerned. It is just more a comment that if we are opening up our documents, we can maybe think about if it's prudent to have a separate short IT policy paper, or could it be combined with some other document. But the end result is that we will not bring it to you in its current form. Jaakko Sirén from Aallon kokoomus. The last meeting, there was a good discussion about our digital policy. discussion of how we would like to see the AYYE community's IT service field. So it would be nice to have more communications to the representing council as well, and kind of ask people how they want to implement it. We should almost kind of encourage people to establish a related association. It's just a feedback from me. Thank you.
Thank you. If we have any other questions regarding the news from the central office, please present them now. All right. Thank you, Vili. Closing discussions and closing the item, and declare that the council decided to record the latest news from the central office. Closing item 7, moving on to item 8, previously shelved, updating the composition of the SYL delegation. For 2022. The background being that in the last meeting, this matter was handled and on the table, and it was not declared urgent, but it was shelved. Thus, the situation is that this General Assembly has already taken place. So you want to speak, it seems. Something from the audience, I guess. Do you have any relevant points for this item? If you feel that it is relevant, you may host a short comment, then we move to decide. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Representative Council. To Ertus Siren, so point of order, Jaakko Siren. Will this item not continue from where it was shelved? So discussion on the item. That's probably what it says on the regs. If you have a short speech which is relevant, you will hold it, then I will close the discussion and decide. So this may be my speech. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Alan Kokoomus. I think that shelving this item was completely misusing the tool of shelving. Shame on you. It would have been nice to actually hear what people would have thought about the relevant discussion. In addition, we talked about updating the regulation with the delegation, and more on that later. Thank you. So no other requests for the floor have not been made, so I will close discussions and move to decide. Decision being that the Representative Council decided that it would not change the delegation of the SYL Assembly, but the delegation would be in line with the decision adopted at the Representative Council meeting 8/22, supplemented by the board decision 33/22. Decided. Closing item 8, moving on to item 9, or actually before moving on to item 9, at this stage, I will declare that as decided by 5.1, the next item, item 9, will be handled in a closed session, meaning that at this stage we will close the stream. And please say something if you. Yes, if possible, then please do so. We will have the
Welcome back. Let's continue with the meeting. The stream is back online. Moving to item 10, the 2023 plan of action. And Ilma Virta will present this. Thank you. Chairperson. So, plan of action. You had the preliminary discussion on the 13th of October. And I sent you several templates for this. Some of them have been refined into diamonds that have ended up in this final proposal. The board has also stated its plans on this, but the budget and membership fee that usually are handled in the same meeting, we considered that we really can't do it this time because of the timetable. So it will now be processed in December's meeting. And in relation to this, if the plan of action is approved today, it would of course be prudent that we wouldn't take the money away reserved for the projects in the action plan. But if it's not approved, then we can still look at them together with the budget, the next meeting. We have just today prepared, done work for the budget with the board. So we have allocated sufficient resources for all the projects to the budget. So the biggest change in the actual structure of the document is that we saw that there's my side, the non-profit side, and Monica's side, the investment and real estate side. We saw that Monica's side, they had already proposed this good idea for this year of having these long-term action plan projects that carry on over several years. But I have been of the mind that action plan projects are restricted to 1 year. And then we came to the conclusion that we shouldn't try to fit kind of two blocks through the same hole, so to speak. So my projects, the projects on my side are for 1 year, and the projects on Monica's side are multi-year projects that were started last year. And if you approve of this action plan, Communications has promised to tidy up this quite ugly slideshow to have a more appealing package online. So, and for example, the capping ceremony of Manta is not here in the project, even though it is a big thing next year, but because it is done at regular intervals, it's considered as part of our continuous operations. And then we were of the mind that we should have less projects so we can actually properly implement them. So let's move on to the actual projects. So we have 4 projects whose duration is the same as the term of the board. We have the repair of the SharePoint. It was previously called exploding SharePoint. So the problem here is that SharePoint and Teams World is done with this. We have kind of cobbled it together ourselves. which means that it's very difficult to manage access rights, difficult to find information. People can't access the places they would like to on SharePoint. So we just saw that we should just do a complete overhaul so that it's done with the help of professionals, that we don't have to renew it again next year. The person in charge of this project is Annika Ojelma, the development manager, and the project resources needed for this project. Well, of course, we need sufficient financial resources. We have budgeted them in the budget. They also need the input from the IT team and development manager and the entire organization. Because of course we have to make sure that the correct information is transferred to the new system and the incorrect information is not. You already heard a bit about this service design development. The service design of communication sector. Because when a person visits our website, the AYYE website, we need to consider does the website flow smoothly so that the person can easily find the information they're looking for. And now this is not the case. There's also outdated information on the website. So the structure is very challenging also maintenance-wise. We will not necessarily reform the entire technology. We have a good deal about the technology with Aalto. But the actual structure and content. So if a person tries to find information about housing and rents, there's a clear path of how to find that information. So we are now looking into what kind of services and information people are looking for on our website. So we really need to find out what kind of pathways or journeys we need for the website. The person responsible for this project, Nea, our new manager of advocacy and communications, but most likely Julia will also be involved very much in this project, as she is involved in the service design project as well. Then we have updating the policy paper that was already mentioned before today. It's quite a big project for the advocacy sector. The policy paper has been approved since 2017. Since then, so the world has changed quite a lot from that. So the things entered into the policy paper back then may not be correct anymore. So that's why we think we should open up the policy paper and talk about the policies and change it so that it will correspond to what you want to see in the policy paper. In addition to the input from the advocacy sector, we will also involve you, the representing council, in this so that it will look like what you want it to look like. And fourth project is the review of association, recreation, and rental facilities. I will be the person in charge of this project because this is kind of a intersectoral cross-cutting project. So it relates to both the community sector, real estate, facilities. So we thought it's best that I will be in charge of this to make sure that the progress is smoothly. The idea here is the same as previously. We have a lot of different facilities for recreational associations and for one-time rental. So club rooms, saunas, and the like. People have also talked here about us needing new facilities corresponding to new needs. So the idea here is to look into what kind of surveys and chartings we have done before, examine our current facilities, what is their usage rate, our current real estate properties, do they contain some kind of facility spaces that we could use more, utilize more, and now when we're planning new buildings, most importantly Otokari, this will also work as the foundation when planning what we will have, what kind of spaces we will have at Otokari, so that we will have a roadmap of what kind of facilities the community wants to have in the coming years and where they will be located. And yes, I mentioned that there were 4 projects on my side, but I lied because Student Center is also on my side. I also lied about all of my projects being just for 1 year because Student Center is for several years. So the fundraising will continue that we started already last year. We have already done good work this year. The government, the state is currently handling our application for funding. There are some positive signs regarding that. It may actually be that we will get some kind of a grant for it. And also people from AYYE, KY, and TF who have been preparing or doing this fundraising, they have also done cooperation with Aalto University about fundraising from foundations. Now, since you just approved of this delay of 12 months to the Student Center, now I think all parties have approved of it. So now we can start adding fuel to the fire to move forward. So the idea is to have discussions with these fundraising coordinators. Because as you heard from that there's a bit of a gap between the estimated cost of the Student Center and between the preliminary contract. So we would need to close that gap with fundraising. Then plan function projects for housing activities. So this is Monica's side. So if you'll first look at the actual projects, their headlines. First we have information knowledge management. Then we have development of AYYE student housing stock. These are exactly the same headlines as we had in the previous year action plan. So here we have first described what we will do next year, and here in the bottom it states what we have already done this year. So the information and knowledge management project continues from where we will leave off this year. And we are moving to a more digital world away from physical papers, also in this regard. And the goal is to have easy to use, effortless digital processes for our members and also for employees, so that we wouldn't have to use that much time to manual work, for example, sending invoices and the like. Then the second project is a development of AYYE student housing stock. You have heard of this before as well, several times this year. This includes the Otokari project, Miesten tie extension project, Serviniemi project. Because for Serviniemi, there's a lot of need for extensive renovations that we need to prepare for. Then there's the construction for the Otakari buildings. Oh, you can actually, I think you can see my messages as resume Teams. Well, but yes, and also the sales process of real estate properties that you received a small update on already. And I promised in the meeting with the chairs that once Monica is here in the December's meeting, then we will talk more about the sales process. These projects will be extended to next year. We'll continue next year. That was my presentation. I'm happy to answer your questions and listen to your comments. Thank you, Antti. Opening discussion. So once again, let's have the questions first and then more of a general discussion after that. So yes, Palosua and then Filman. Thank you, Palosua from Vihreämpi Aalto. You mentioned this more IT-centered projects, and you had suggested to have an external consultant for these projects, but have you considered that if we have several complex similar projects, couldn't we just hire a resource for these IT needs instead of hiring an external person? Yes, we have considered that, but we saw that, well, you can see more about the financial situation in the next meeting, but we are in a very challenging financial situation, and adding permanent costs by hiring a full-time employee is a whole different scale investment than what we have planned for these projects. It's not impossible, but it would take up even more money than what we have considered that we need for these projects for next year. Do you have a follow-up question? Yes, a follow-up questions. You also considered who will maintain the website after the reform, but in the SharePoint reform or repair, there is no mention of maintenance. Have you considered this, that it may also need someone maintaining the system? Yes, that's a good clarification. I think this maintenance side for the website came up in our talks with the board to add this sentence there to make it clearer. But yes, you are correct. That SharePoint will not kind of remain in a functioning order by itself. So when we create new contents, new groups, for example, we need to have clear responsibilities and clear rules laid out. And it's clear that Annika and IT is responsible for this, but it may very well be that in the future employees don't have had much rights to create new groups themselves. But we haven't yet gone into that much detail about it. But kind of the goal here is that we wouldn't have to do a repair of the SharePoint again in a couple of years. Pilman and then Poutanen. Thank you. Why doesn't this look like a plan of action? I've seen quite a few action plans over the years, and compared to the previous ones, except for last year's, I think this is a bit too light for an action plan. Are you planning for the year after that to get back to this a model that I think is better, where the action plan actually looks like an action plan? Now, the action plan always reflects their creators, and I think this is a good format for guiding our operations, because it shows what are the most important things that we will do definitely next year. And then you can give us the evil eye if we don't complete this. And I don't want to add anything here that would be kind of with too much slack or anything that we really don't know or not sure that we can actually carry out. Of course, if the Representative Council wants the format of the action plan to be different, we will of course consider it. But I think this format is good for an action plan. Thank you, and Poutanen. I'm assuming that these are still questions. Well, I haven't yet opened the general discussion, but maybe we'll now move on to the open discussion. Yes, Poutanen for Vihreän Aalto, I would have asked about these arguments about the reform of SharePoint and website and saying that this would take up less resources this way than hiring a permanent employee. But this also raises a question that we cannot see the budget yet. So it's kind of difficult to assess these documents if we can't see both of them at the same time. Also in the chairperson group chair meeting, I have heard some rumors about talking 5-figure sums when it comes to both of these reforms. And the minimum is around 20,000 euros for both. And when we usually talk about the expenses about a single person, it said that it's 60,000 euros per year. So I think this is pretty much in the same scale. So I will put in the question of whether you have actually considered whether an external consultant who also makes use of the resources of AYYE personnel, can they actually produce what we want in a better way than actual AYYE employees who are more familiar with the environment and our challenges and involved in our everyday work? Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
That's
very good grounds for whether or not we should handle this together. But if this would be left on the table, that's grounded well, in my opinion. I say so. I'd reiterate, however, that or heighten the point that we have the opportunity to purchase consulting, but we're also talking about non-military service people or project workers. So it is possible to be creative with the resources by hiring. If we are hiring a full-time person, for 1 year. Yes, but can we find an individual that will join us for 1 year? But I don't think that we can afford a kind of a full-time addition into our IT personnel. But all options are on the table in a sense that maybe at this stage in SharePoint, this consulting is mainly to do with we believe that we need and I individual who knows this very well. Previous version was done previous things, and that ended up how it ended up. We don't want to kind of repeat our mistakes. You asked about resources. If I remember correctly, I think we've allocated a total of 40,000 in the budget for next year. Yläpoikelus next. So kind of 2.5 questions, as it were, that to do with kind of outside of these projects, but later developments. and the policy papers approved by the REPCO, like the association regulation, language regulation, and others, the implementation up to a finish requires resources, so all the steps can be taken. So how will we resource these, that they will be carried out? So my last 1.5 questions are to do with kind of the same. So it's good kind of focus that the prioritization here, that we have a predictable group of projects that can be handled well. So how from here on out, how we do monitoring, how we do managing, that we can get the support for those. Thank you. Question like, how do you ensure inside the office or that these projects move on, or is it about reporting? But mainly, I think the REPCO is interested in that, they'll be kind of done well. We are here for several years, and in we see in other organizations that the most important thing of the day always kind of surpasses these. So how do we ensure that these projects will be handled to fruition? That's an excellent question. It comes back down to my principles that the individuals in charge of these projects have been negotiated with and ensured that they feel that they have time for it. And it's kind of my task to ensure that they will happen. So we will kind of move other projects away in order for us to get these done. My philosophy here is that if we commit to these, we will do them properly. Let's not commit to projects that we don't feel like we're able to do. What I previously you asked from the papers, it's good clarifications regarding to the investment policy. Our investment policy has been implemented by our financial real estate committee. Language policy affects our everyday activities, and from that we must, as AYYE, we must check that we follow it. Of course, assuming that the former of the board will go through as is, this will mean that we will have an international board next year, which means that we will have changes to that activity. And from the community framework project, we have, of course, what that's already going. And what comes to the other implementation, like sharing our facilities, we have already implemented these things according to the new framework. So we must ensure that all these items will be done. Regelin next. Was already kind of answered previously, so no long answers needed. But we heard about how it's busy, but I would still like to know that why you are proposing for this to be approved now without the financial plan, the proposal that would also entail this. Kind of a problem that we had already made this plan of work up to a big point when we actually realized that the financials would not be ready for this meeting. But I'd say that handling this matter in this meeting, for the like, if you want to shelve some of these projects, or you declare that this would need something else or extra, it's a lot easier to move these results into the financials now. But if you want that the financial approval will be done in the next meeting, for example, I can't see that as I won't see it as a problem. Next question from Emil and Palasuo. Thank you. So I feel that for AYYE, it's wrong that we use money so much on consultants when we should, as has been stated, that we should get an actual IT manager that we have had in the history. So this kind of an individual can support AYY's activities on a more broader extent and give us the items we need internally within the house. This plan of work, we should also see what we will be doing otherwise every year. And this document does not take a stance on what the board would be practically doing next year. And I feel that it is essential that what the board will be using its time for next year. So I propose primarily that the budget and the plan of work should be approved simultaneously. We should approve this in the next meeting with the budget, and also proposing that we ask add a write-up where we demand the board should get us an IT manager who would implement these things. And if we can't find one, then we'll use consultants. Yes, so Jonas, comments? Thank you. Let's say so that we can do for the next meeting, we can do calculations that what is our estimate on what it would cost for us to have an IT manager. It would be a lot more than 40K that has been allocated for the projects. And you will see the estimate. Let's say that it's not a piece of cake. So if you wish that we will have this individual, it's possible, but it requires that we should either get money from somewhere else or we must leave something undone so we can get the money for this allocated item. So we don't have an option where we could just recruit one full-time IT person. I don't know how that could be achieved. We may, of course, do calculations on what would be our kind of a best viewpoint for that, how would a capable individual, how much would that cost as a full-time employee of AYYE? I feel that the budget is centrally very close to the plan of work of the budget. I can't see that we should approve them in separate meetings. So I'm seconding Emil's motion to change the approval to a later date. So proposal for change would be that to return this to preparation. Can you send the form for that, please? Thank you. Poltanen. I second the seconding, and I feel that we have a trend here that in this update process we're talking about this year we've had a outside consultancy to do a clarification based on which we'll do a project for the resourcing of which we'll have the outside consultants. And I have the question that have we actually thought about the finance in a long term? That I don't want to kind of question AYY's judgment on the matter, but I wonder that if year after year we have to buy consulting for our plan of work projects, how can this be the state of things? and especially since this pertains to the IT issue, we lack an IT manager. That when they left, we didn't really even discuss that. Should we recruit a new one? I was in the board then, and I was doing digitalization back then. And as I was doing digitalization, it was actually impossible to develop any digitalization projects because we didn't have any staff members. And now we kind of have 2 digitalization projects. The people in charge of it would be our communications experts, communications manager. Of course, they have the election and the policy paper next year. I think we had Annika, yes, not there in the SharePoint. But one other thing is that the individuals responsible for the RepCo, we have 4 people for sharing the responsibility. I know that AYYE has a leadership team with 8 people, and I'm wondering that don't they really have any projects that they'd want to bring to the RepCo? And I feel it's some sort of also an organizational transparency issue that how do we see the different items? If they are continuative activities, there should be some sort of development that should take place. I would hope that we'll return this to preparation. I'd also hope that we could depict kind of our ongoing relational activities that are already being done, that are still progressing on some level or another, that we could actually develop and relate to us. Sorry, many kind of issues in one speech. Trying to kind of break this down a bit. I have obviously been the operative or in my position for a short while, but I have learned to be understood that our earlier stance on personnel is that we should really be very careful with recruitment. That if we have a person who quits, we should look at this very carefully. I have nodding in the back row. Good, so I haven't understood this completely wrong. What comes to this year's kind of Gofore, like we'll be cooperating with them. The price quality ratio seems to be very good in this project. And I will reiterate that in AYY's web pages, this consulting is only one possibility. The other options, if we can find a good individual, a project worker or a non-mail service person, they are very probable. But it could be what we hope for. But I will continue with the other managers as that we discussed it with the entire leadership team. And I have 3 managers working under me, in addition to Nea and Annika, one from the community. And with the community, when we discussed these issues, we stated that the kind of projects that would have kind of passed muster as a plan of work or plan of action project, we didn't have any because like the Manta cap ceremony, I see that it is ongoing activities. I didn't approve of it into these projects. So when pertaining to these 2 other managers, Monica is a project person here, obviously, but we have several sub projects where we have Monica's managers, so Petri and Minna, and the difference comes from these, from our philosophy, so that I feel that that we need to have one clear individual in charge, who is here on the slide. Siren, followed by Fielman. You can request for the floor still. So, Jaakko Sirén, Aalto Coalition. It's good that we have the problematic problem listings. It's a bit kind of depending, but you have the purchases are good. In what form would we want the plan of action? I feel that this is for presentation. This is a good format, listing kind of the main points, what we want to achieve. It is a binding document, so even smaller items are binding. So if we need to hire a consultant from at this stage, it's actually hard to see that what's kind of the core of the issue. So it would be nice that if we would have this in two forms, this document, so it would be good. Coming to the digital resourcing, it's very hard to find a generalist who could do both kind of fix SharePoint, could make UX design, make web pages, UI design, kind of service design. In this stage, consulting is best because you can't actually find per individual who'd be able to do it all with the resources we have to offer. Thank you. So that's what we've kind of come to grips with. So the bang for the buck here, using this term, is best, especially in SharePoint. And with the web page update, if you can find a non-mail service or a project manager, they are very good options to implement this project. Next request to the floor from Fielman and Palosu are following him. Thank you. Let's start with the fact that in this room we probably don't have or several years we haven't had a person who've been more critical to the AYYE economy than me. So I have always been kind of jabbing that, do we need this person, or where is this money going? But this is an item where I very strongly think that we need an IT manager. The use is just so great. AYYE needs this individual. When we had Petteri, I remember this with warmth. IT was fun. At least I found it fun. And IT is not so fun now. So we need the IT manager. We also brought forth the point that, or Siren brought forth the point that consultants are nice because we don't have a jack of all trades available. But I strongly disagree. We totally can find jacks of all trades, especially if we have an IT manager, they can do these things internally. As we want, for example, web pages, just by purchasing web page styling, specifically separately is a lot cheaper than creating this sort of thing. It's very cheap to just buy one thing, rather just so you can't really say that our IT manager can't do X or can't do all things, because they can. And if we need to purchase knowledge, or we can just purchase it cheaper. In addition, I'd also like to hear, I think wasn't answered, the fact that what will be the board, what will the board be doing? Will the board be using its time and resources for next year? How will they be visible to us? It would be approving an action plan like this. Is that the board could just then wave their arms around and do whatever they want. It wouldn't be very specific to see that what would the board be doing. So as if the former of the board may comment, but I'll channel them and just that first about myself. I feel that we need to have an individual in charge of these projects that would be a member of staff. Doesn't mean that there wouldn't be any board member presence in these projects. They are not listed obviously we haven't listed each individual who is here in this project. For example, the policy paper project will be a large, broad project. Partially, I feel it's important that the board members are not overburdened on projects where they might not be able to commit, meaning that if we decided to do a project, whether or not the new board members are the individuals that they feel that they are their projects or not, I think it's philosophically better that the new board will work their own vision into their year, and they can bring forth, for example, to the representative council, kind of a what is the board's plan or whatever, this idea. If the new board has these kinds of plans, what would the new board want to do in addition to these projects? Yes, Paloso and then Fielman. Continuing or returning to Regelin's question, why would it bring this forth today? Even though I seconded the motion that we would continue this in the meeting, I would like to thank that this would be brought here, because I think it's a very good ground that we can discuss this, even though we don't have all the material. I think that is good. Fielman, maybe I'll comment that if the board would be here in its entirety, I might have a discussion of whether or not the board want to take it into its template, the whole thing, that we want to do this. But since we are not here in full force, I will not do that. Also state that based on this, that we have a proposal for change for returning this to preparation. If you have any other proposals coming up, please note me now. Thank you. So regardless of whether you not represent the council, about the plan of action itself, you see that it's sensible to approve this in the next meeting rather than the next meeting. So in the next meeting, we'll do it in the form that it's will take. The next request to the floor from Poltonen. It's nice that there's so many of us here. I'd like to oppose the director here that of course we would do things that bind the next year's board, because the board represents the representative council and we present the board. It's kind of ridiculous to say that we can't do something, that a decision that binds the board. We are here to decide on what the board must do based on our will. Sorry, my pathos here. Your pathos has been justified. It was not my original intention to say this, that the board definitely needs kind of just that they have the kind of will to do their own thing as well. The biggest philosophical difference would be that I would say that all projects need an individual in charge, and of course these board members will do these projects in their own sectors, supported by each other. I interpret that we're drawing to a close with discussions. I'd say that I feel that talking to the representative council here, that I would feel that it would be cool that if we could get as AYYE kind of a more agile direction in planning our activities, and I would wish that the plan of action approval should be something that could be kind of a in name only. We would have a shared recognition of what projects does the community want to develop that would be known beforehand, and our ongoing activities planning would be more continuous and more predictable and self. I feel that last year we had in the office action plan, we have all the projects that were, I think, were they placed. They were handled in a timely manner. Do you remember that this is kind of this project exists, it's here, and we have planned these things, that we should do more of this, and news from the central office would be the place where we do the continuous activities? Doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. Other requests for the floor have not been made, and the proposal for change is here that we'll move to vote. If somebody here, if you notice that you don't have your voting slips and you are eligible to vote, I ask for you to pick one of those slips. Sorry, my humble apologies for bilinguality. We have two options, which is the board's template, which is the fact that this action plan would be approved or been brought forth here. We have Fielman's proposal for change, seconded by Palosua, that this would be returned to preparation, which in practical means that it will be handled in the December meeting. Will be prepared to preparations. It won't be shelved. It means that we may change it based on your feedback. If we'd shelve it, we'd have to discuss it in its entirety in the same form. So blue being the template, you approve it. Red being the proposal for change, and we return to preparation, and white is empty. Let's do so that let's close the discussion as well. Losing my train of thought here. So yes, that's it. Any questions on the vote? Let's do the vote counters as well. You can get to move around about a bit. That is good. So yes, the lame man must walk up front. That is a good decision. So if you lift your voting slips, it's a clear, so you don't have to do the singular counting, but kind of. So let's do some training for the stairs. So take your preferred voting slip, and you may vote now. Yes, that is very clear. We don't have to do singular counters. We have 0 blues, 1 empty, and everything else is red. So thank you for your vote. You may state we decided that the Representative Council decided to place the AYY plan of action back to preparation, closing item 10, and I'd want one technical break here before our vice chair vote. Let's use it as stage here. So at this stage, we'll have a 10-minute break and continuing at 43.
Let's continue with the meeting. Moving to item 11, appointment of the chair of the board and the board for 2023. In accordance with section 24 of the Constitution, the Student Union Board consists of a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 10 members, including the chair. And in accordance with section 27 of the Constitution, the call for applications to the board is open and public. The forum of the board brings a proposal to REPCO 3 days before the decision-making meeting. The forum of the board makes a proposal of the members of the board to the reps and council at the latest in the meeting following one's election, but no earlier than 7 days after one's election. If the REPCO approves the proposal, the forum of the board is elected as chair of the board, and the persons mentioned in the proposal are elected as members of the board. If the REPCO does not approve the proposal, a new election of the forum of board is conducted, and the person must submit one's proposal on the members of the board. This election procedure is continued until the reps and council approves the proposal made by the forum of the board, and at its meeting 10/22, the REPCO elected Ida Parkkinen as the forum of the board, and according to the Constitution, she must bring her proposal to the attention of the REPCO at least 3 days before the meeting, which has been done. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Nieminen and Järvinen say that they are disqualified to take part in this processing of this item. I talked way too long, so Ida, the floor is yours. Yes, great, the mic is working. It's fun to be here to hold my first presentation for you. But yes, here is my proposal for the AYY's board next year, and also some background to the process. Well, in general, about the application process, we had 14 applicants. 2 of them left out during the process, so we conducted 12 interviews. Now, in my proposal, all Aalto schools are represented, 3 from arts, 2 from biz, and 5 from tech. And also from all 4 different schools of tech are represented. The gender distribution is balanced, and students from 2nd through 7th year. And there's also international background here in this proposal as well. We had one-on-one interviews for all applicants, group assignments, and also a panel. Now I want to apologize for the panel because there's a bit of a miscommunication regarding the panel, but hopefully everyone could attend. The REPCO groups are also given the chance to comment on the applicants and to support them. Also gave the opportunity to personnel and the board to comment on the needs for next year, especially when it comes to the division of responsibilities between the members. About the appointment or selection principles, of course, AYYE Constitution. So I adhere to them. And the important things are board member suitability to next year's tasks and board work at AYYE. And also the motivation of the applicant, naturally, is very important. I also want to point out that group dynamic of the board was very important for me, because we, of course, work in the best interest of our members when we can cooperate well, work well together. Also, I took into account the representation of the board and comments from REPCO groups. I received short statements about the applicants from 2 groups. Some highlights about the proposal. The responsibilities have been divided so that single board member wouldn't have multiple time-consuming portfolios. And when combining portfolios, the aim here has been so that they would support each other. So for example, community and new student portfolios are very time consuming, so that's why I didn't appoint them to a single member of the board. This makes it possible for all portfolios or sectors to get the attention they deserve, but also it helps their well-being and capacity of our board members. Compared to this year, there are new portfolios, there are elections and alumni. The elections portfolio was there also before, but purpose here is to support next autumn's RepCo election process and prepare for them. And alumni, or actually alumni and corporate relations, the goal here is to make our alumni activities clearer, because this year it was divided among 3 members, so I wanted to kind of put that together. In my proposal, there is no sports portfolio because it's already included in well-being and social policy. And I think sports is very much linked to that portfolio. So here we have the actual proposal. Here's an overview. I will also go through it in more detail. So yes, first I propose myself as chair, as laid down in the constitution, and Nina as vice chair. She'd also be responsible for alumni, corporate relations, and strategy. And then from advocacy to educational policy, expert Veiksin, responsible for education policy, and Totti, responsible for education policy and elections and well-being. Next, we have more about advocacy and community. So N, responsible for social policy, sustainable development, and communications. And Mante would be responsible for new students, internationality, and equality. Then more about community. Toni, responsible for associations, council, and facilities. And Oskari, responsible for community volunteers and digitalization. And last, we have real estate sector. So Fanni, real estate, student center, sustainable development, and campus. And Antti, who would be responsible for real estate, finances, housing, and services. Thank you. This was my presentation. We'll probably open the discussion next. Maybe if we could have also the proposed board members here up front, so we can all see them. There's a good percentage of a good attendance here. So opening discussion. And now you may ask questions, present comments, and preferably talk broader as the board in whole and not focus on individual persons. So I'd like to remind you that you can either approve or reject this proposal. You cannot make changes to it per se. But yes, any request for floor? Yes, Poutanen. Very enthusiastic. Yes, thank you, Poutanen from Vihreämpi Aalto. No one else wanted to say anything on behalf of our group, so I will. Vihreämpi Aalto was happy with this proposal. Especially we liked that all schools were represented and also good representation from arts and also international representation. So thank you. Thank you. Next, Siren. Jukka Siren from Aallon Kokoomus. This board is looking very good. It has international representation from all schools. Yes, this is looking good. Let's continue the good work we have done this year. Next, Stimpert. Yes, I'd like to correct that one of the people who dropped out themselves, or actually two who dropped out themselves, were international students. But yes, thank you for your comment. Any other request for floor? Apparently no, so I think we can close discussion and move on to make the decision. So the motion was that Representative Council decided to appoint the board for 2023 in accordance with the proposal. This has been decided. Our executive director has stated that these organisms we're about to present are a bit challenging, so we'll get back to that a bit later. Yes, as an addition, I'd like to say that the new board, once the meeting is over, please come up front. You will get these board plans. These are current presidents acquired for you. Each will get this budding plant, and you can each grow them, cultivate them, and send each other photos of how they're doing. Lotta said that they had this kind of tradition in their old board and wanted to share this with you, but this is logistically a bit difficult, so we'll get back to this after the meeting. I will give them to you then. Great. Closing item 11, and as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, item 12 is conditional. And since we approved of the proposal for the board, we will ignore item 12 and move on to item 13, election of vice chairs of the Representative Council for 2023. In accordance with Section 6 of the Student Union Constitution, each Student Union member is eligible for election as chair or vice chair of the RepCo. The transferable vote method used in the election of vice chairs of the RepCo is further specified in Section 22 of the Student Union Constitution. Opening the candidacy, people who have Jaakko Sirén, Tuomas Kureniemi, and Taik have, and also Sampo Sainio have announced their candidacy, but Sampo Sainio has said that they will withdraw their candidacy. Are there any other proposals besides these three? Apparently no. Closing candidacy. I have already instructed the candidates that they have 2 minutes for their introductory speeches, and then the RepCo can ask questions for about 7 minutes, and then they have 1 minute for closing speech. We'll use random.org to draw lots to see who will go first, because we don't have a 3-sided coin. Does the RepCo have any questions? After the presentations and the questions, the candidates will leave the room. We will close the stream, and then you can hold supporting speeches, and then we will have the vote. Here we have our 3 candidates. Please, go ahead. So first, we have Akor, Tuomas Kureniemi, and Jaakko Sirén. So Kureniemi, Sirén, if you could please the room. Now, honored to tell you that we have a new clock that we can use to see that no one goes over time.
But it would be horrible. Yeah, a little bit about me. I'm a first-year master's student, and I study mechanical engineer. I've only been here 3 months, but I'm kind of interested how things go. So I came here, and someone suggested to apply for the vice chair position. So here I am. Before I came here, I was studying in the United States for 4 years. I went to University of Minnesota. I studied aerospace engineering. I graduated in 2020. It was the height of the corona, so I have to leave. I'm originally from Myanmar, so I have to go back to Myanmar, and I stayed there for 2 years. Before the coup happened, and I have to leave again to Finland, so I'm here. And it's been nice living here, very safe. Everyone's pretty nice, and I get now everyone making new friends. So very nice place to live. I've been in a few organizations, but nothing as big as this one. I was the treasurer for my engineering association back in the bachelor's degrees university. It was only like 20, maximum 30 people, so not much to do. I handle like the budgets and everything, like the purchases. In addition, I'm also the chairman for like welcoming you guys and also sports.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, then we move on to the questions.
Anyone?
Eli puheenvuoroja voi pyytää ja pyydän teitä nyt esittämään ne sitten mielellään englanniksi, jos on mahdollista, koska meidän simultaaninen tulkkaus ei valitettavasti kykene tänne eteen. Emil, ole hyvä.
Kiitos puheenjohtaja.
English.
What kind of plans
You can.
like being vice chair for the next year?
To be honest, I don't have any plans. I don't even know what I'm gonna do if I become the vice chair. The website doesn't really describe anything. Like, it's very open-ended. So when I apply, it said it depends on the individual person who becomes a chair. It depends on the person what they want to do. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yes, tuleeko muita kysymyksiä?
Any other questions?
Poutanen, ole hyvä.
Poutanen, please.
Thank you very much for applying. You said you don't know very much what you want to do. You're not part of the repco or in the board or something like that. So can you describe how do you understand like what the repco does here and how well are you familiar with what we do as repco representatives?
I'll be honest. This is the first time I've been here inside a meeting, and I imagine everything gonna be like this meeting, a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of like votings and things like that. And yeah, I don't even know what REPCO stands for. I imagine it'll be some sort of like student organization, something like that, right? Yeah, I don't have the answer for that. Sorry.
Kiitos. Tuleeko muita kysymyksiä?
Any other questions?
Apparently we don't have any further questions, so if you wish, you can have your 1 minute speech on why the representative council should elect you.
Like I said, I don't have much to add actually. I'm not very experienced and I don't have much knowledge about this position, but somehow if I got the position, I'll try my best and hopefully everyone also helps me. So that's my goal and nothing more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thomas. And when you go out, can you please ask Thomas to come in? Thank you. Yes, ja eli tosiaan 2 minuuttia kyssärit ja minuuttia. Niin meillä kello on, kun sulla on 5 sekuntia aikaa ja kahdesti, kun 0 sekuntia aikaa.
Obviously the same instruction as for everybody
Oletko
else.
valmis?
Are you ready? Thank you, Chairperson. Dear Representative Council, I am Thomas Kurenniemi. Many of you probably know me. 4th year board member. a fourth year student, this board member in a guild board before that. I like this place, even faults and all. We have a lot of faults, that is true. I want to do something for AYY. I go to do a double shift in the board, but I'm just mad enough to maybe do this. I tried out what it feels like to kind of pass the buck to democratically chosen representatives. I think I did an okay job. So I feel like I could be a good choice as vice chair for next year. Thank you. Thank you for your turn. Then you have the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you. What plans do you have next year as vice chair? One third of my time I aim to use to sleep. Probably failing, but still. Hopefully I will be vice chairing meetings. One, please. A chairperson is sick and is not available for a long time. And an unmentioned individual is sending you tight questions, might be called EF, on legislation. How do you go about this? Well, primarily try not to answer anything stupid. Secondly, we'll consult the operative manager there, the executive director, and then the publicity is mainly decided by the administrative court. Thank you. Next up we have yläpoikilas followed by Stimpert. Silence in the hall, please. Could have laughed in the stream. Yläpoikilas Kiltarengas, hello. You mentioned in your application that you'd want to create a Repco Tinder to match people with meetings. I think that sounds a kind of a good idea, that people could actually meet each other and soak up the atmosphere. The truth is that it would be possible now. People would just set up meetings, and some people are active to do this, but how would you encourage people to use this Tinder to participate in this lottery of lunch? In practical terms, still kind of in the planning stage. I don't have a ready-made solution yet. But kind of a meetup, I would be kind of the person that I would send like to Nico, like, could you go, Nico, to lunch with Pochi, for example? Act as the mediator. Here to say that Pochi is available. You'd say like you would be if you feel it's worth your time. Next question, Stimpert.
So we have a candidate who actually doesn't know how Repco works. I would assume that you have some knowledge, but you tell me you want to sleep and not answer questions if I have some. Can you please give me at all the feeling that you want to put any effort in this position?
Joo, tosiaan kuten hakemuksessani mainitsin.
My application is that like I love democracy, which is why, even though I kind of mentioned where the district court or administrative court, in order to answer something, I wouldn't not answer or avoid answering. Can you please reiterate the question of the second part of the question?
Are you actually interested in working in the position at all? You don't give the impression based on at least the translation in previous answers.
Yes, I have. We have been discussing that our translation services should be developed. But to answer the question, yes, I am interested, definitely. Sorry for the interpreters, the aim was not to insult. The chairperson is not speaking into the microphone. Okay, now. You have your 1-minute elevator pitch. I love democracy. I feel it's great that we have a democratically selected organ of trust. That we can represent ourselves, even though the chairperson might wish otherwise with other individuals. But I feel that I am the correct person to ensure here that there's kind of a freedom of expression. Thank you. I will not grant any requests for the floor. You can ask Jaakko to come in. Pretty warm here, so you have your 2 minutes. Good luck. Hello, I'm Jaakko Siren. The current year I've been in the coalition group chair, and I'm applying for the vice chair position. This year I have had the great joy of enjoying our repco and all the high jinks it entails. We have great people here, all of you. Even though we leave the room, we can actually stop kind of being so hung up about things. But I'm applying for the position so that I can do things. I can organize with the other chairpersonships and all the individuals these meetings, prepare the material, and to create a better experience for the representative council member. That we communicate in what form the material should be. We're asking, like, do we have some sort of previous comment until we have the document is ready? That's something I wish to develop. Otherwise, as a vice chair, I'm neutral. I am very much choosing that what party I represent in the upcoming year. I have done some meeting technical hijinks. That's basically due to the fact that I've been representing our group. As a vice chair, I would state at this stage that what would be the point is that what people should do in order for them to present or represent their best values. This is how you make it fair. The representative council shouldn't be a place where you kind of do this kind of joking around or jokery thing. You can actually learn here. You don't need to be ready here. So please vote me for the vice chairpersonship if you want an individual where you can do your feedback on how things should be developed. So that's what I'll be doing. Thank you. I'm done. about 7 minutes for questions. Fielman, please. Thank you, Chairperson. Are you ready that you should be the first Vice Chair? It's kind of a technicality in the sense that I looked at what the other requests, like it said that if this could be kind of detailed or elections, you may vote me as the first Vice Chair as well. Thank you, Fielman. What plans do you have for next year, especially pertaining to what do you want to create, what do you want to achieve? Well, to create the group chairpersonship meetings so that it would be rotating, that we'd have as much people as possible. The best place to find out what's actually going to happen, what's coming up for debate, to help to communicate how to make the material development so that basic REPCO members knows that what they're deciding on, that these meetings would be nice to attend, 3 to 4 hours per meeting, but a good prep and good options. But people can still create their own opinion, not go based on others. I will listen to development ideas and will develop them with you. So continue. Thank you. The chairperson falls ill and is not available, so it falls to you to answer Mr. EF's questions regarding law regarding publicity. Something like we would ask about what is within the legislation regarding publicity. The easy answer is that I'd say that I'll interpret so that AYYE is a public organization, so all things should be mostly public, but preparatory material is in a sense like is it depends on AYY's benefits and AYY's best interests. The policy that we start to do depends on the case. Is the issue something that it's if it's on the pages it's public, can we publish it? If it's an issue where we need to make an information request, I would delegate towards that end. But I am for openness. I start to lobby it as well. Next question, Ylä Poikelus, thank you. Thank you. Next year we have the elections. How can we get the REPCO to work in a way that it will show as an attractive thing to other REPCO members or members of the student union itself? A simple solution would be to attend 5 meetings and you get a badge. People go to the annual celebration. Okay, what is that? And they say that's an AYYE badge. And they are, oh shit, I need to get that badge for myself. This could be my kind of simple idea that the most alarming thing is that how well that would work. Another thing that we need to develop is that we need to communicate on what we're actually deciding on. These are all public, but it's a very big operation to find out that how can we find them. AYYE web pages, you start to run around the web pages, you have to go to the puzzles through, you need to go through what kind of decisions are we making, but this is the place where we decide how do we implement living, what kind of advocacy do we do, and what do we communicate with the university. So we should make this more clear in order for individuals to be more interested in what we do. Short moment for questions still available. So let's move to your 1-minute elevator pitch on your choice as vice chair. As stated, I'm Jaakko Sirén. Vote for me for the vice chairperson. I'm doing this place a better place to be, a place where it's easy to participate. You know what you're deciding on, what we're doing, and make a year that people actually know what they're voting on and why are they voting and how, and people are interested. Thank you. Thank you. Jaakko, you may leave the microphone there and we'll next move to voting. Ask people to recuse themselves from the room if you can't vote. At this stage, we'll move to vote. Close the stream.
Because the fun thing is that if the number of votes doesn't add up, we'll have to do a re-vote. Does everyone have their friend with them? Or does someone notice that someone is missing? Oops. Is the stream back online? Oh yes, it is. Thank you. And everyone is here, so we can continue with the meeting. So vote counters, please. Yes, there were 34 votes given, 0 empty votes, 1 rejected vote. The threshold is 11.73 votes. After the first round, Siren exceeded this with 27 votes. After this, Siren's surplus votes were transferred to the 2 other candidates, after which Kureniemi exceeds the threshold with 17.6 votes. Thus, we have Jaakko Siren and Tuomas Kureniemi elected as vice chairs. Thank you to the vote counters. With this result, I can say that the Representative Council elected Jaakko Siren as the first chair, or yes, and Tuomas Kureniemi as the second vice chair. This has been decided. Congratulations to the elected. Closing item 12, with item 13, other business. Are there any other business? Opening discussion. You may request the floor. Filman. Thank you. Filman from Voltti. I'd like to give some critique to AYYE board when deciding to take part in this energy crisis campaign, where saunas would be closed for a certain period of time. The House meetings or the House committee is actually responsible for these kind of decisions. So I think board has overstepped their bounds by deciding on matters they have no authority over. So this is a bit of a critique towards the board for this decision. Thank you, Filman. Stimpert.
Thank you, Stimpert. As far as I have heard, there was no one responsible for the election process for the board, and I would hope that this matter would be like I want to remind now that next year there is a appointed person for that, so it goes a bit more smoothly, and maybe the application can open a bit earlier, because for the applicants it's a bit easier. For example, if they want to talk to former board members, if they get this idea a bit in advance, so they have time to plan and arrange these meetings and then talk to the people.
Thank you. And as a clarification, does this have to do primarily with the communications that it should be improved upon?
Yes, I have, but also I have asked actually several people when the application for the members of the board opened, and it's not entirely clear. It is possible that that happened after the former of the board was elected, and I think it could be at least even if the form doesn't open, the information could be available, and it's also important that the website is up to date, so you can actually see what former board members there have been, so you can contact them.
Kiitos.
Thank you. Any other requests for floor? Apparently no, so closing discussion, closing item 14, moving to, well actually, what item is it? I had to check. I think we can close item 14 and move to item 15, closing of the meeting. it's 9:04, closing meeting. Thank you.